myself are working as hard as we can to do every decade to show what our history was like. So I'm going to bring Natalie on to the stage here to talk about things happening in the 1980s.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, David, for the warm welcome. So yes, we are looking at specifically the 1980s, the 1990s, and we're going to start off with Signal Hill's population. So Signal Hill which shows the city councils with their shovels breaking the ground. Price Club also provided task revenue and employment opportunities for Signal Hill residents. So Price Club opens in Signal Hill, and this is showing the ceremony on November 28th, 1986. And to the bottom right corner is a Signal Hill resident working as a cashier. So the redevelopment agency also wanted to renovate City Hall. In 1934, City Hall was completed and labor was supplied by Roosevelt's era Civil War Administration. City Hall is 14,000 square feet and it cost under $50,000 in the 1930s. Architect Kenneth Wynn used an early 30s art modern architecture style. City Hall developed proposals to restore and remodel the concrete and steel building. It was expected to be completed in 1986, and they wanted to preserve the building up to the year 2000. And we know that today is 2024, and the building is still standing there. Here are some proposed improvements. On the exterior, they wanted ADA accommodations, window repairs, preserving the exterior wall by repainting and waterproofing the walls. And on the interior side, they wanted a new elevator, replacing the lighting and power distribution systems, new carpet and furniture, and also new air conditioning and heating units. Here is a picture of City Hall on the left in 1965, and then here is a picture of City Hall in 2023. So we just had our centennial, our 100th anniversary, and City Hall is still being reutilized, it's still being used, and so hopefully as we continue, City Hall will still exist and still be preserved into the future.
I have a question. Was there ever an elevator installed?
Not inside? No, there was not. But on the outside, there is a ramp for ADA purposes. So expanding Cherry Avenue was another project. In 1984, the first phase was completed, and they wanted to widen this avenue. These improvements were between 19th and 21st to widen the street by 84 feet. And to the left is another newspaper article, which was published in 1984, and at the bottom is Mayor Gerard Goodhart and the city dignitaries. Here is a picture on the left side of the Cherry Avenue in 1920s, and then to the right is also the same avenue, but in 1980s. So you can see that the oil rigs are removed, that the street is wider, and that more people can be going on the road. So finally, the last project that the redevelopment agency worked on was for Hilltop Park. So in the 1980s, there was a lot of preliminary steps negotiating to build a park on top of Signal Hill, and into the 90s, that's when they actually built it and opened it up. But here's a picture of Hilltop Park in 2024.
during this time period, the Press Telegram had a special supplement showing the past, the present, and the future of Signal Hill. So here's the front cover of the supplement showing a map of what Signal Hill looks like in the 1980s. On the picture on the right has a special events of everything that would happen on August 25th, 1984. Some of these events was like horseshoe pitching, recreational games, pie eating contests, puppet shows, skydiving exhibitions, and a whole lot of fun things. Part of the information they had in the supplement talked about some of the economic trends. Some things were like growth in industry and diversification of the economic base, continued important location for petroleum-related industries, increasing employment, so now there are more women and young people in the labor force more than ever before. Another part of the trend they were talking about the housing trends. So they had stuff like previous industrial character rapidly changing to an urban mixed-use character. Gradual release of land previously used for oil production as a result of the secondary program. There is an increase in redevelopment sites. There's more awareness and increased public concern over the character and type of development. There was an increase in housing stock. Now more homes were suitable for families, and the vacancy rates are beginning to stabilize at approximately 5%. Part of the 60th anniversary, Ronald Reagan sent not one, but 2 letters to Signal Hill to congratulate them on their 60th anniversary. Part of the letter he mentioned, the spirit which has built and sustained your community reflects the energy which has forged America into a land of wonder. As a community held by a fellowship and goodwill, Signal Hill has become home to many who love it dearly. Further, it stands an example of the blessings of liberty and freedom to those around the world. Here is the second letter, and it describes mainly the same thing as the previous letter, but it's just 2 different letters they just wanted to send to Signal Hill. And just a little note from the 1970s when Ronald Reagan was actual governor of California, we have a picture of Gertrude Beebe with Ronald Reagan. This second letter was one of the members of the House of Representatives who lived here in Signal Hill but wanted to congratulate them on their 60th anniversary as well. So the next part I'm going to talk about is the Signal Hill oil history. So during the 1920s and 1980s, these were some of the stats of wells and gallons of oil being produced each day. To a little side note, during the 1920s to 21 to 29, mainly it was wooden oil derricks. From the 1930s to the early 1970s, it was the steel derricks.
Whoa, wow.
And then from the 1940s to the present 1980s was the pump jacks. And as you look and calculate all the figures, the 1920s was the biggest decade of oil being produced. Especially in 1923, we were producing 69 million barrels of oil per day. And it was one of the highest in the world. while oil derricks